right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to talk about compound inequalities. So like we did before, we're just going to continue to increase in complexity, but we're still working on those same two skills. We're talking about equations and inequalities in one variable and solving them. Sometimes we'll have coefficients with letters. So the big idea here, the first vocab term, is the idea of a compound inequality. A compound inequality is two or more inequalities that are connected by the words and or. So we're connecting ideas now, and this does apply to real-world situations. You'll have a chance to practice with some real-life situations on the homework. We can have two possible options for our solution sets. We can have an intersection, which is where a set of elements common to two or more sets, as in compound inequalities. So these are things that are true for both. So it's true for the first inequality and true for the second, or third, or fourth, or fifth. We can also have this idea of a union. Well, the union is the graph that shows us my inequalities. Sometimes that'll be an intersection where it has double shaded spots, where it has things that are true for both, but sometimes the union graph will show that there are opposite solutions, that there are some solutions that are true for one inequality and not true for the other. So a union is just the graph of the compound inequality containing the word or. The solution is a solution of either inequality, but not necessarily both. So with those vocab terms in your notes, let's practice. For our first one, we want to solve the compound inequality and graph the solution. So to deal with this, I'm going to talk about each section just as two separate inequalities. So the first one, let's do blue today. If I want to get p by itself in this first inequality, I know I need to add 8 to both sides. And because I'm adding or subtracting, there's nothing that happens with my symbol. So it stays the same way. I have 12 is less than or equal to p. Well, now let's do the other one in red. To get p by itself in my other inequality, I need to add 14 to both sides, and I get p is less than or equal to 2. So when I'm going to graph this, I'm going to create my big graph. Oops, not 2. Miss O'Leary's brain's on vacation today. 2 plus 14 is 16. There we go. So when I graph this on my big graph, I'm going to do the same thing before. I'm going to center my number line, but this time I want to have one number smaller than my smallest and one number greater than my biggest. So I have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. For my first inequality, the first half of my compound, I have 12 is less than or equal to p. So I know it's going to be a closed circle at 12. And if I'm plugging in possible options, well, I know that p is going to be everything greater than that. So I'm going to shade that direction. Leave that alone for a second. My second half, p is less than or equal to 16. So again, I have a closed circle at 16, but this time it's everything less than or equal to it. So I know the things that make both of these statements true. My and piece here is going to be everything that's between them. I'm going to shade it in purple here. So I know that everything between 12 and 16, including 12 and 16, is true. The other way that I could write this is I can write my compound inequality, because it has the word and, I can write it, squish them together, that 12 is less than or equal to p, and p is less than or equal to 16. I can write it as one compound inequality because it has that word and. When we write it as an and, we would have the smaller value first and the larger value second, and then our symbols get put in between. So now let's try an or problem. I have 22 is greater than 4m minus 2, or 5 minus 3m is less than negative 16. So again, let's solve the first one. Let's do this orangish color. First thing I need to do here is I need to add 2 to both sides, and I get 24 is less or is greater than 4m. To get m by itself, I divide by 4, but I'm dividing by a positive number, so nothing changes with my symbol. For my second half, first thing I need to do is I need to get rid of 5, so I have to subtract 5 from both sides, which leaves me with a negative 3m is less than or equal to a negative 21. Well, then I need to divide by negative 3, but when I'm dividing by a negative number, my symbol needs to flip. Ooh, that's a messy flip. Let's try that again. My symbol needs to flip. Now I have m is greater than or equal to 7. these two are joined by an and, or by an or, not an and, so there's no reasonable way to connect them. I'm going to leave it as two separate pieces, and I'm going to create my number line with one value smaller and one value larger. For my first one in yellow, I have an open circle at 6, and I know that m is less than that, so everything to the left-hand side. Or I have m is greater than or equal to 7, so I have a closed circle at 7, and I shade everything greater than or equal to. So in this case here, my union graph shows that I have two separate possible solution sets. I could have things that are less than 6 or things that are 7 or greater. So I have a union graph with the two separate pieces. So now let's make it one step more challenging. We're going to have to write and solve the compound inequality and graph the solution. So the first piece that I see is I know that the product of -5 and a number is greater than 35 or less than 10. So I see the product of -5 and a number, I'm going to use n as my number, is greater than 35, or I know that that same piece, the product of -5 and a number, is less than 10. So for the first one, I'm going to solve it. When I divide by -5, I know I need to flip my symbol. So now n is less than -7. Or, again, divide by -5, and I get flip the symbol, n is greater than -2. To graph my solution, I build my number line, one piece smaller than my smallest, and one piece larger than my biggest. For the first one, I had it in this dark blue. I have an open circle at -7, and I know that n is everything smaller than that. Or I have n is greater than -2, another open circle at -2 and everything greater. So I can graph the combination here. Well, now let's do one more from the homework. So this is what needs to be in your notebook, but now get out your worksheet if you have a printed worksheet, or flip the page in your notebook and you can answer the homework problems in your notebook as if the PDF was the book assignment. And we're taking a look at number 11 now. I have a compound inequality and I need to graph the solution. Well, this one's similar to the one that we just did, except this one is an and. So to solve this one here, I need to break it up into the two pieces that I see. I see that 5 is less than 3h plus 2, and I see that 3h plus 2 is less than or equal to 11. So I'm just going to rewrite it here. I have 5 is less than 3h plus 2, and I have 3h plus 2 is less than or equal to 11. Solving my inequality in red, I know I need to take away 2 from both sides, and I get 3 is less than 3h. Well, I'm dividing by a positive number, so nothing happens to my symbol, and I get 1 is less than h. For my green one here, I do the same process. I take away 2 from both sides, and I get 3h is less than or equal to 9. When I divide by a positive 3, my symbol stays the same, and I get h is less than or equal to 3. So now what I'm going to do is I can graph this here, but I want to recombine it back into that compound form here where I see both pieces. I know that 1 is less than h, which is less than 3. I have that junction here where they are connected by an and, so I can rewrite it as one compound inequality. On my number line, I find 1 for h, and I put a nice open circle. I know that h is everything bigger than that. But I also know that h is less than or equal to 3. So I have 3, and it's less than that. So my answer, my solution set, is everything between those two numbers. H is between 1 and 3. I have an open circle at 1 and a closed circle at 3. So your job now is to finish up the worksheet. There are 17 problems on it. The key will be posted on Teams. This one I want you to grade like a regular book assignment. I want you to take a look at the key on Teams, grade your own work, and then submit it. Tomorrow in class, if you are in class, you're going to take a quiz over 5.1 to 5.4. If you are at home learning, you're going to learn about 5.5. You'll watch the video, take notes, and do the book assignment. And then you guys will swap. On Thursday this week, B-Day kids will do the quiz, and A-Day kids will take notes on 5.5. Then we'll finish up 5.6, and we are ready to take a practice test and a real test before we let out for winter break. DLI students, you'll follow the B-Day plan. Thanks, guys.